So, Chris Eubank Jr. has made the switch in trainers to Roy Jones Jr. and is currently over in Florida training with him. Do I think it's a good move? Initially, yes, I do. I think it was clear from a few things that Chris Eubank Jr.'s ex-trainer Ronnie Davis mentioned about him not listening. There was a couple of times that I recall during fights where Chris Eubank Jr. would tell Ronnie Davis to be quiet, and you got the impression that Ronnie Davis was there to kind of fill a role, but that role wasn't of a lead trainer. He obviously trained Eubank Jr.'s father, Chris Sr., to an awful lot of success, but he didn't seem to have the same impact when it came to Eubank Jr. I think the switch is a positive one because Chris Eubank Jr. clearly respects Roy Jones Jr. How could you not? Being a fantastic fighter, an all-time great. I think that level of respect is there, which is the initial plus. I think Eubank Jr.'s work ethic is pretty much second to none in world boxing. If you followed his social media accounts, you'll see he trains on Christmas Day. He's constantly training. So his work ethic, there's no issue there. His discipline, there's no issue there. He's always on top of his weight. I think it's a much better move now that he's at middleweight, back at 160. At 168, he didn't seem to carry the strength or the power to really make an impact in the division. So everything is looking largely positive. A few people online have criticised saying Roy Jones doesn't have any sort of training credentials. And they're correct, but then Roy Jones only retired 2 years ago. In the modern climate of boxing, if we have a look at two great trainers from the past sort of couple of decades, you look at Freddie Roach. Freddie Roach retired from fighting in 86, and then he took over the reins from Eddie Futch to train Virgil Hill to a world title a year later. With the likes of Manny Stewart, legendary trainer, he started at the Kronk in 71. He started training amateurs in 71, moved to the Kronk in 1980. So 9 years after beginning his training journey, he had his first world champion. I think we need to look at Eubank Jr.'s age. He's 30. He's definitely in his prime. He's probably got another 4 years of being in that prime. And he needs to make significant strides in order to get the most out of training with Roy. So the clock is ticking. It'll be interesting to see whether Jones Jr. can implement some of his own techniques into Eubank Jr.'s fighting style. But let's not forget that Roy Jones was a super athlete. Probably the most impressive athlete I've ever seen in the sport of boxing. And there are a lot of fighters who just can't do what he did. So it's an interesting mix. Once again, I do think it's a largely positive mix. And with myself being obviously a British fight fan, I hope Eubank Jr. can get his hands on a world title. Looking at the current crop, I think he'd have to be close to back of the line to face Canelo, because everybody wants to face Canelo. Canelo is doing exactly what he wants. He's the biggest star in the sport. He's fighting other title holders, and he is picking and choosing who he fights because he's in that position of power. Then we've got Charlo. Tough fight. I rate Charlo. I think he's a good fighter. I think him and Eubank Jr. would be a great fight. Then lastly, we have the IBF champ, Golovkin, Triple G. Going off his last performance against Derevianchenko, he claimed to have the flu. But is he on the slide? I've got the impression that he is. He doesn't seem to be the same destroyer that he was a few years back. Pre the two Canelo fights, actually. Could Eubank Jr., with his ferocity, his uppercuts, his work rate, his relentlessness, could he grind Triple G down and take a points or maybe even a late stoppage? Maybe. I'd like to think points if it was to happen. If I was handling Chris Eubank Jr., that's what I'd go for. I'd go for the IBF title. But again, Chris is going to have to get himself into a position where he's either the mandatory contender or it makes an awful lot of money. because it's going to be a difficult fight to pin down. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think of the partnership in the comments section. Hopefully, boxing will be back on our screen soon and we can see some of these great fights resume. But best of luck to Chris, best of luck to Roy Jones. It'll be interesting to see how the partnership unfolds. I will catch you again, guys. Take care.